Welcome to this edition of Cooking in Mr. Durazi's Kitchen. Hey everybody, Mr. Durazi here. Welcome back into my kitchen. For those of you who it's your first time here, welcome. For today's video and today's class, I have a little bit of an interesting inspiration for today's recipe. Social media, in particular, TikTok. Don't get too excited. I'm not about to start dancing. I know that you want me to. It's not going to happen. At least, not in this video. Today I've got a baked feta and tomato pasta. This is something that came to me through TikTok. My daughter brought this to me a few months back. Said, I keep seeing this thing on TikTok. It looks delicious. We watched a few of the different videos, and lo and behold, I said, no, let's give this a try. And in fact, it is very, very delicious. What I love about this recipe, it really embodies so much of what I love about food, taking simple ingredients and some simple, really simple basic techniques and making something that's really, really wonderful. So, a couple of differences in what I'm going to do compared to what you're going to see in most of the TikTok videos. For one, I'm going to use canned diced tomatoes instead of grape tomatoes, simply because I like them better. The grape tomatoes are fine. I like what the canned diced tomato brings to the table in terms of making more of a saucy finish to the dish, which we'll see in a little bit. The other thing that I've done is I've also added some diced onions, just adding in another element of flavor, which I really, really enjoy. Overall, just a really wonderful dish. The pasta, you have options. You can play around with it. Best to use shorter pastas, things like penne, rigatoni, any of the smaller shapes. You don't want to use any long noodles like spaghetti, linguine, fettuccine. Really wouldn't be something great for this particular recipe. As far as seasonings, herbs, spices, play around with this dish, right? So I'm giving you a simple recipe, and you can add on to it and really make it something all your own. All right, I hope that this is something you enjoy. I hope you give this one a try, and I really hope you enjoy it. All right? Take care. Let's get cooking. Let's take a look at the mise en place for this recipe. Starting with the feta cheese, I used 1 8-ounce block of President Feta. I chose this brand because I feel that it melts the best of the brands I've used. 1 pound of pasta. Here I used campanelle, but you can use any short noodle, staying away from long noodles like spaghetti. 2 15-ounce cans of diced tomatoes. 1 medium onion, 1 clove of garlic, salt and pepper, and then a half a cup of an olive oil blend. I use a canola and olive oil blend. Missing from the video here is red pepper flakes. Now to assemble, we're going to start with a large bowl in which we're going to add our diced tomatoes. The diced tomatoes have been drained, but you can still see there's a little bit of juice. Going to go ahead and add our small diced onion. Then we're going to add our garlic, which has been minced. We're then going to go ahead and add our oil. So I said about a half a cup of oil. Add that. Then we add our salt and pepper. Now with the salt, we want to be generous, but you do want to be careful, okay? There's a balance here. You want to make sure that you don't over-season, which will overpower, but you want to make sure there's enough to really brighten the flavors. Going to add a few cracks of fresh pepper. And now at this point, we're going to go ahead and start to mix. So you're just going to kind of fold the tomatoes, really making sure that you're incorporating, getting all the garlic and all the salt dispersed throughout the tomatoes, because you want to make sure that they're evenly seasoned, right? You always want to make sure you don't have any pockets of salt, which are then going to be tough to eat. That really wouldn't taste very good. Now, once you have it mixed, we're going to go ahead and get our pan. Now, I'm using a half hotel pan, but you can use a Pyrex dish. You can use a half foil pan, whichever you have. Going to go ahead and spray a little non-stick cooking spray just to make sure that we don't get anything burned to the sides. Now, once you have that completed, go ahead and just going to add the tomatoes right into the pan. Always making sure to scrape everything out. Again, we paid for all of it. We want to use all of it. Now, once you have it into your pan, you're just going to go ahead and kind of smooth it out, really getting it into one nice even layer. Now, you want to make a little bit of a hole in the center. right? And this is because the cheese, we want the cheese to sit directly on the bottom of the pan, right? Not sitting on top of the tomatoes. We want the tomatoes to roast nice and evenly. So we're going to go ahead and take our block of cheese, and we're going to go ahead and just place that right onto the bottom, kind of using the cheese to push the tomatoes out of the way, and then adding that right into the pan. Now, the next thing we're going to add is just a little bit of red pepper flake. Just a small amount is going to add a little bit of heat, right? Adds a little bit more character to the dish. This is optional. You don't have to do this, but I like the way that it adds that flavor. Going to go ahead now and take a little bit of oil and just drizzle the oil over the top of the cheese. This is going to help to keep the cheese from drying out when it's baked, and at the same time, it's going to add another little element of flavor. All right, so now just going to go back, make sure that everything's in that nice even layer like we talked about. And at this point, now we're just about ready for the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and take that pan, and I'm putting it onto a half sheet pan, which just makes it a little bit easier for me to move from the top of the stove to the oven. Now from here, we have our oven, which has been preheated. So we have a preheated 375-degree oven. Going to go in there for about 35 to 45 minutes or until the cheese is nice and softened. Now, if you noticed on the stove while that was going in the oven, there was a pot of water. That's because we cooked the pasta while this was baking. But now that this is fully baked, we're going to go ahead and we're going to check to make sure the cheese is soft. So you see, using a spoon, push into the cheese. Now it was nice and soft. You can see it spreads. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to mix the cheese and the tomato mixture together. Essentially, this becomes our sauce. Now, I did hold back a little bit of the pasta water before I drained off the pasta in case this was too thick. However, I can see from looking at this here that the tomatoes were nice and juicy, which does lend to a nice sauce-like consistency. So you're going to go ahead and continue to mix. Make sure it's all really well incorporated. And there we can see we have basically our sauce. So now we'll take our pasta, which has been cooked, and we're going to pour this right in here. Now you can do this in the pan, or you can put both into a separate bowl if you need a little bit more room for mixing. So once it's mixed in, we're going to go ahead and fold all of that cheese mixture into our pasta. One of the reasons I like a shape like this is because of the fact that it is hollow, and some of the sauce is going to get inside of the pasta. So it's not only coating the pasta, but it's also going to get a little bit on the inside of the pasta, which makes for a really nice mouthfeel when you're biting into that. All right, so continue to mix, making sure it's really well incorporated. And then once you have that completely mixed, again, it's going to be really pretty much ready to go. Now, you could have added some other things into this. Some fresh basil would be nice to add in here now. It would add another depth of flavor. You could go with a little fresh parsley. Play around with this, right? You could add different herbs, different spices, but being careful not to overpower the overall dish. Here you see it plated, served with a little roasted cauliflower. And there's our finished product.